8,000 miles from Britain, Argentina defended its claim with everything that could fly. This is every Argentine aircraft used in the Falklands War, where aging jets fought Sea Harriers, transport planes, braved anti-aircraft fire, and Super Étendards launched the missiles that sank British warships. Let's start with the fighter aircraft. IAI Dagger. Israeli-built copies of the Mirage 5 formed Argentina's primary ground attack force. These Delta-wing fighters flew dangerous low-level missions against British ships in San Carlos water. Daggers sank HMS Ardent and damaged several other vessels before suffering heavy losses to Sea Harrier missiles and ship defenses. Mirage 3EA. Argentina's premier interceptor struggled against Sea Harriers in air-to-air combat. Lacking modern missiles and pilot training for dogfighting, Mirages shot down no British aircraft while losing several of their own. These French-designed fighters operated at extreme range, limiting their combat effectiveness over the islands. A 4 Skyhawk. The legendary American attack jet became Argentina's most effective strike aircraft. Flying suicidal low-level attacks against the British fleet, Skyhawk pilots displayed incredible courage. They sank HMS Coventry and Atlantic Conveyor, damaged numerous ships, but paid a terrible price with many aircraft lost to Sea Harriers and ship defenses. Super Étendards. 5 French naval strike fighters carried the Exocet anti-ship missiles that terrified the Royal Navy. These modern jets sank HMS Sheffield and Atlantic Conveyor with AM-39 Exocet missiles launched from beyond visual range. Limited to only 5 operational aircraft and 5 missiles, they achieved devastating results with minimal resources. FMA IA-58 Pucará. Argentina's domestically built twin-turboprop counterinsurgency aircraft operated from grass strips on the islands. Designed for ground attack and close air support, Pucarás harassed British forces during the landings. Many were destroyed on the ground during SAS raids, with survivors proving vulnerable to British air defenses and Harrier attacks. Let's move towards the bombers. Canberra B-62. British-designed bombers, ironically used against their creators, flew nighttime attacks on British positions. These obsolete twin-jet bombers struck San Carlos and British ground forces with limited success. 2 were shot down by Sea Harriers, proving they couldn't survive in contested airspace against modern fighters. Now it's the turn of Reconnaissance Aircraft. Learjet 35A civilian business jets hastily converted for maritime reconnaissance searched for the British fleet. Operating at high altitude beyond fighter range, Learjets provided early warning of task force positions. Their intelligence allowed Argentina to vector attack aircraft toward British ships. Boeing 707 commercial airliners modified with electronic surveillance equipment monitored British radar and communications. Flying from the Argentine mainland, these converted 707 seconds gathered signals intelligence throughout the conflict. Their presence forced British ships to maintain radar silence when possible. Now we have transport aircraft. C-130 Hercules. The workhorse of Argentine logistics flew dangerous resupply missions to Port Stanley Airfield. Operating at night to avoid Sea Harriers, Hercules transports kept the garrison supplied with ammunition and reinforcements. 1 was destroyed on the ground, while others sustained damage from British naval gunfire and Harrier attacks. Fokker F-27 Friendship. Twin turboprop transports carried troops and supplies to the islands during the occupation. Less capable than Hercules but more numerous, F-27S maintained the supply line to Port Stanley. Several were damaged during British attacks on the airfield. Fokker F-28 Fellowship. Jet-powered civilian transports impressed into military service flew troops to the Falklands. Their speed allowed rapid deployment of reinforcements to Port Stanley. These commercial jets operated primarily before British naval forces arrived. Electra L 188. 4-engine turboprop transports supplemented Cone 132nd in the airlift effort. Carrying cargo and personnel, Electras maintained supply lines under increasingly difficult conditions. Their civilian origins made them less suitable for combat zone operations than military transports. DHC-6 Twin Otter. Small Canadian-built utility aircraft operated from short grass strips across the islands. These rugged bush planes moved personnel and light cargo between outposts. Twin Otters proved invaluable for reaching locations inaccessible to larger aircraft. Short Skyvan. Boxy British-designed utility transports served in the light cargo role throughout the occupation. Their excellent short-field performance allowed operations from improvised airstrips. Skyvans moved supplies and personnel between Argentine positions across the islands. Beechcraft King Air. Light twin-engine aircraft impressed from civilian service for transport and liaison missions. These business aircraft moved commanders and priority cargo rapidly. King Airs operated primarily before intense British air operations began. Cessna 310. Small civilian twin-engine aircraft, requisitioned for military communications and light transport. Operating from grass strips, these light planes connected isolated garrisons. Several Cessnas remained on the islands throughout the conflict. Now, after that, we have helicopters, transport, and utility. UH-1H Iroquois. American Huey helicopters formed the backbone of Argentine helicopter operations. Operating from Port Stanley in ships, Hueys transported troops and supplies across the islands. Several were destroyed on the ground during British Special Forces raids. CH-47 Chinook. Heavy-lift helicopters provided Argentina's only capability to move artillery and heavy equipment. 2 Chinooks operated from the islands, moving guns and ammunition to defensive positions. Both survived the war despite British attempts to destroy them. SA-330 Puma. French medium helicopters supplemented Chinooks in the heavy transport role. Flying from Port Stanley and forward positions, Pumas moved troops and supplies under difficult conditions. Several were damaged or destroyed during British attacks. Aerospatiale Lama. High-altitude helicopters operated in the mountainous terrain of the Falklands. These French-designed aircraft moved personnel and light cargo to positions inaccessible by ground transport. Lamas proved reliable in the harsh South Atlantic weather. A 109 Hirundo. Italian light helicopters served in liaison and light transport roles. Operating primarily around Port Stanley, these civilian-derived aircraft moved commanders and priority cargo. A 109 seconds proved too light for the demanding combat environment. Bell 212. Twin-engine utility helicopters were impressed from civilian operators for military service. These civilian Huey variants transported troops and supplies throughout the occupation. Bell 212 seconds operated from both land bases and Argentine naval vessels. SA-315B Llama. Additional high-altitude helicopters operated alongside Aerospatiale Llamas. These French helicopters proved essential in the mountainous terrain. Their ability to operate in thin air and harsh weather made them valuable. Let's move towards the helicopters, anti-submarine and naval. Alouette Free. French light helicopters operated from Argentine naval vessels for reconnaissance and liaison. These small aircraft provided over-the-horizon observation for surface ships. Alouettes flew from the aircraft carrier and destroyers throughout the conflict. Lynx. Ironically, British-designed helicopters operated from Argentine destroyers during the war. Armed with anti-ship missiles and torpedoes, Argentine Lynx helicopters threatened British vessels. One Lynx was shot down during the General Belgrano incident. Sea King. The aircraft carrier ARA 25 de Mayo operated several anti-submarine Sea Kings. These British-designed helicopters would have hunted British submarines if the carrier had launched its planned strike. The carrier's withdrawal kept these capable aircraft from combat. Now we have attack helicopters. SA-342 Gazelle. French light attack helicopters armed with rockets and machine guns supported ground forces. Operating from forward positions, Gazelles engaged British troops during the land campaign. Several were destroyed by British forces proving too vulnerable for the combat environment. Maritime Patrol Aircraft, SP-2H Neptune. Ancient American maritime patrol aircraft searched for British submarines and surface vessels. These piston-engine aircraft flew long-endurance missions over the South Atlantic. Neptunes provided early warning of British naval movements despite their obsolescence. Grumman S-2E Turbo Tracker. Turboprop-powered variants of the Tracker with improved performance. Operating from the aircraft carrier, these aircraft provided anti-submarine protection. Like their piston-engine cousins, they never engaged due to the carrier's withdrawal. Let's jump towards training and liaison aircraft. T-34 Mentor. Piston-engine basic trainers pressed into liaison and observation duties. These small aircraft moved personnel between bases on the mainland. T-34 operated far from combat zones in support roles. MS 760 Paris. French jet trainers are used for fast liaison and light attack missions. Several operated from Argentine air bases supporting the campaign. These small jets proved useful for rapid communications. FMAIA 50 Guarani through. Twin-engine transports built in Argentina served in light cargo and personnel transport. These domestic aircraft supplemented foreign-built transports in rear areas. Guarani aircraft demonstrated Argentine aviation manufacturing capability. Beech T-34 C Turbo Mentor. Turboprop trainers that supplemented piston-engine mentors in liaison roles. These modern trainers moved personnel and light cargo between bases. T-34Cs operated exclusively in support areas. Now, it's the turn of naval aviation. A 4Q Skyhawk. Carrier-based variants operated from Ara 25 de Mayo. These naval Skyhawks were prepared to strike the British fleet, but never launched due to wind conditions and carrier withdrawal. They represented Argentina's wasted carrier aviation capability. T-28 Fennec. Piston-engine attack aircraft. Operated by Argentine Naval Aviation from mainland bases. These older aircraft flew limited missions in support roles. Fennecs proved too obsolete for modern combat. Let's talk about civilian aircraft requisitioned. From Super Étendards launching Exocets to Skyhawk pilots flying suicidal attacks, Argentine air power fought courageously against overwhelming disadvantages. Operating at extreme range without aerial refueling, flying obsolete aircraft against modern British defenses, Argentine aviators achieved remarkable results.